to be underneath a heat lamp so the glue dried at a faster pace. So I was like figuring out all these variables as you're like, yo, more sales are coming in. I'm like, no, secretly down in my head. So it's Tom.
It's Jake.
You already know.
It's pretty spot on. All right, ready?
All right, we're back for another episode.
Quick takes with Tom and Jake. What are we talking about today?
I think today's quick take, we've kind of hinted at it in prior episodes.
Yes.
I think talking about how we started Prism Lens Effects would be a fun story to share. Not only does it have a lot of like crazy moments and looking back at it, like it's a pretty cool little saga of events. And
Right.
I think anyone listening who maybe is inspired to like maybe start their own business
yeah.
could kind of take a lot from this. You know what I mean?
I agree. Because I mean, it was us bootstraps from day one, starting a business. I mean, it's still only 2 years old, but we've learned so much. We've done so much. We've grown so much, like literally within, we'll dive into it, but less than a year each time, move to a bigger location.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. We're in debt. We got to figure out this, bring in new employees to handle this because there's just so much stuff. So
there's a lot.
I think
we almost
lot to unpack here. Cotton.
I know. Yeah. I guess let's just start from the beginning, right? So
Yeah.
I think the initial conception of Prism Lens Effects kind of even dates way before we even like bought the domain name and like started the Squarespace and started prototyping.
Yeah.
It like started like when we were really on our grind. I think on that first episode, we kind of spoke to how we met, and there was like a period of time in which we were just doing video after video after video. And I think part of us in doing so many videos, we were like kind of pushing ourselves, like, how do we make our videos look different? Not only from other people's videos, but from our own. Like, I don't want to just keep doing the same thing. So we kind of find ourselves like using different things to like abstract the light, create cool edit points from like light bulbs, chandelier glass. Like I think I even broke a champagne flute at one point and was like using that.
Light bulb, like an old school like Edison light bulb with the filament, and we hooked it up to a kind of like a magic gadget thing, and would like flicker the light bulb on and off, and would hold the light bulb in front of the lens and let the filament flicker.
Which one did we use that on?
Dude, I know it was at Fat Eye. I remember vividly it was at Fat Eye.
Because I had a dimmer, and like if this was the, say this is the camera body, we would like literally dim the light bulb in the lower third of the frame. I remember looking cool.
Damn, I don't know what video that was. I wish I could pull that up.
Long story short, we were doing different things with glass and light bulbs to create like unique refractions. And like, I think the thing that we realized, and anyone sort of listening can probably agree, if you are kind of a one-man band, which we tended to be,
right?
You're operating the camera or holding the camera, and you're also like zooming and pulling focus. But then like you also have to like have another hand to hold this thing, right? This prism, this piece of glass. And that I think was the initial sort of like light bulb moment for us, where it's like, well, I think just out of necessity, I was like, oh, let me find one that just has a screw. Like I'm going to go buy someone else's. Cause like, obviously this is an issue. And that's where we were like, oh,
this doesn't exist.
Yeah. Like, I don't see this around. I don't see like a triangle prism. That was the initial one. We actually we just started with like a triangle prism, I think.
Yeah, a triangle prism and orb. But yeah, the very first thing was just a triangle prism. Because I would shoot like photos through like prisms and glass and different things. And weird videos. I think one of the main things we always used was like a split diopter. Yeah. For like the cinema cameras, and we would like hold the metal part of the frame and dodge it around. We did that on like a Bone Thugs video. You did it on what's the guy's name?
John Bellion.
John Bellion. We did it with Futuristic. We did it like Mark Battle. A bunch of music videos.
It's cool because like when the sort of beat or cadence the song is going, you can actually like not only have camera movement that is influenced by the song, but if the artist like moves his head, you can like whip the thing that you're holding to create like a unique abstraction. So like that stuff was super cool.
But like case in point, it wasn't meant for that. It didn't have handle, finger loop. So it was like very precarious the way we were holding it. The frame of the metal part of the split diopter would like get in a frame. And so like ultimately led to like some of the products we built for Prism Lens Effects. But that whole idea of doing stuff in camera was like, the initial, which we were always doing, was the initial caveat for like, yo, this doesn't really exist. Let's build it. And then you just went down a crazy rabbit hole of like,
I do that a lot.
Tom will just like hit me and like, oh yeah, I've been taking like woodshop classes. And I'm like, for what? Like he'll just go off on some weird tangent and like, oh, I was doing this.
Before even diving into Prism, because this is actually, I think ties into it a little bit, is Tropic was kind of finding a new stride. We launched out in 2017.
Right.
Mind you, it's like mid 2018. This is when we like really first started like buying a bunch of film and shooting a bunch of film grain. And like Tropic at that moment in time, like was crushing it. And it was at a moment where we're like, you know what, this is doing really good right now. What else can we do? And I remember I even called you, like, I was kind of like, I don't know, riding that high that like, Tropic was finally in a nice stride. I was like, yo, what else can we do? This is so much fun. And you had an idea for, and something I think we still maybe want to do at one point, but it was like an accessory to help like hold the camera. It was like a pouch.
Oh, the film pack thing.
Which was like, when you like, sometimes you're just like, holding the top handle,
you
get kind of fatiguing. And I think this actually came from you. I'll go on too much in a sidebar from working on the baseball show.
Yeah.
You were holding the camera. You're like, oh man, it'd be so nice to like have a little like rest or something on it.
Yeah. So I mean, everything that we've done has come from like kind of seeing a problem and needing a solution ourselves, right? And that was like an instance. And then you started diving into sewing and like, I'm learning.
That's where I wanted to jump into.
Bro, I've just learned how to sew. I bought a sewing machine.
Within a week's time, I kid you not, like you're like, yeah, like I was like, hey, do you have any other ideas? Like, let's do the next one.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, kind of. Like I had this idea for this thing we can call it like the film pack, and it'd be like a little utility pack that you can like prop the camera on.
Right.
I was like, all right, cool. Not even thinking much of it. I'm sure you're like, oh, okay, whatever. I literally like bought like a Singer sewing machine. I watched a bunch of tutorials, went to Joann's Fabric and made a prototype.
Yeah, I still have that somewhere deep in a box.
It was okay. I mean, but yeah, I don't know. I guess from that one, I was just like, I don't know. So basically, I guess I'm trying to set the stage for Prism.
That was before
because
Prism.
We were searching for that like next thing. And that thing was cool. It took me like a week to make that prototype. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if I want to like put everything on my career on hold to like be sewing full time.
Right.
This is just like, and I don't know, that just didn't end up being the thing that that stuck. But yeah, I think essentially kind of circling back to our earlier conversations, like that we were just like the Prism thing. Or
yeah,
like I think refraction.
I think we started to we started to source just a lot of different glass options, shapes, objects from like different glass vendors around the country and different things. And then we're like, all right, what looks cool? What looks the best? And then we like started with the Prism. It's like, all right, let's start with this Prism. Now, how can we mount this to where you can like not put your fingers on it? Because that was the thing with the Prism. It was just a glass Prism. You'd get smudged. You would hold it with your camera and see reflections of your fingers. And it was just not, it was hard to grip and move and maneuver. And it's like, all right, how can we mount this with a handle, but also with an arm and lock it in position with your camera body in front of a lens? And that's where we're like, all right, this is the first thing, Prism Lens Effects. And that's where the name came from, was Prism, literally because the first object was a prism. Like otherwise our company could have been like filter, glass, what, I don't even know. But it was like, that's where the name came from. It was like, yo, we're going to be Prism Lens Effects.
Funny story. I found a manufacturer, I think in like New York, that made like chandeliers. And like, I mean, if you look at a chandelier, it really is like actually a bunch of faceted glass. And I had them like send a bunch of different sizes, 80 millimeter, 125 millimeter. And I remember actually we went out to, when you used to live in Winnetka, we ran around like North Hollywood and we were like I was like, hey, I have a bunch of glass. Do you want to test it out?
Box, a brown box.
This wasn't even like drilled, didn't even have a handle. We were like just holding it up in front of our DSLR or our Red or whatever. Like, oh, that's cool. I remember one of them actually was like a glass ball that like inverted the whole world.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this one's going to be dope. And you're like, dude, this thing weighs like 10 pounds. I don't want to hold this in front of a lens. We're like, okay, we'll put this one back in the box.
Yeah.
But the two that stuck were from this chandelier company, a triangle prism and an orb prism. And we basically, without coming up with like a crazy artsy name, we're like, let's just call it what it is. This is a triangle prism. This is an orb. And it was kind of on that. The next step was like, okay, these look great, but like, how do we're still in the same conundrum. Like I could grab this thing, which we were doing in our test day. Like, how do we like adhere it to where I can operate the camera and it's like actually going to stay with the framing, like as if it's part of the lens or whatever. So that's kind of like where the story and saga begins, I guess. So first wormhole that I went down was like just learning about glass. Glass is so interesting in the sense that you can drill into glass, which was the first thing I needed to figure out. I was like, okay, well, I need to add like a screw.
Right.
Adding a screw to the bottom, like a 1/4-20, for those who don't know, is like a very common mount for, like, I wouldn't say this, but like for your pretty much any standard sort of utility thing in like a camera, like a grip, a top handle, it's all 1/4-20.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, knowing that, how do we add a 1/4-20 to a piece of glass, right? And you would think like, oh, like you could just use like glue, right? That was like the first thing. And I bought a bunch of different glues, went to Home Depot. I found like epoxy that has like 2,000 pound strength. But what I started to figure out, so I basically had like a control. I laid out like a piece of plywood or something. And like, this one is this manufacturer. And I tore the label and I tried like 10 different glues and like saw which one like worked the best.
Yeah.
And the thing that was really, really tricky is these epoxies and glues, without getting too into it, they have to like, there's a cure, like CURE. That's like the time it takes to dry. And some of these were like 3 to 7 days. I was like, oh my God, like that is what? Like that, I don't know if that's going to work.
Right.
And not only that, like, so that was one variable, like having to figure out how to drill and like find the right glue, but also like, where were we going to do this? I was like, first off, my girlfriend at the time, she was just like, yeah, you're not drilling this glass in our apartment. Like we lived in a studio apartment, like in Los Angeles. So I was like, I remember I hit you. I was like, I think we need to like find a space.
So what's crazy about that is then you found the space, but ultimately finding that space for Prism is also what led to our next studio. That's further down the road, but just something that I just thought about.
So I guess a way to describe it for anyone listening or watching is this guy on Craigslist posted a bunch of pictures. Imagine a WeWork, right? A WeWork is a giant building, say like 25,000 square feet, and they added a bunch of cubicles and they like kind of sublease these little small sections of a larger building.
It off.
This guy bought, kind of smart, a large warehouse building that's probably like 25 to 50,000 square feet and made these little 700 square foot like cubes. But mind you, like they're only like wood that's maybe like 10 feet tall. Like you could in theory like climb into your neighbor's unit. Like they weren't sealed or secure or anything. It's kind of beside the point. But we rented one. I think it was like
300 square feet.
I think
it was 300.
Oh yeah, it's like
it was 300. Bro, that place was a shoebox. It was tiny.
It was so small. So I got that on Craigslist, and I like, God, there is so much to this story. I'm like trying to figure out like how much because I even like kind of went down a woodworking path and like built all the shelves.
Yeah, all the shelves that was built, the drill press, there's gosh, I mean, we could dive into so much.
But this was kind of my life for a minute. I think part of this also was stemming around. I remember in a previous episode I mentioned like why I was transitioning to operating, and this Prism Lens Effects came kind of around a period of time where I just got off of like an 8-month show I was shooting for Facebook Watch where I was the DP. And it was like 5 days on, 2 days off for literally like 90 days. And I was just creatively burnt out. That wrapped like somewhere in the middle of 2018. And that's when and then that ASAP Rocky thing went right around the same time. And that's when I was like, dude, this is not fun. I was still doing DP gigs, but that's when I was like, you know what? I want to explore other means of income. Yeah. Tropic's doing great. But like, I was people were probably listening, like, how did you have this much time to like stop DPing and start this whole sort of side venture? And I guess to speak to that, I was kind of just putting the pause on DPing, and I was like, you know what, this is fun for right now. And so anyways, long story short, got this place off Craigslist, bought a freaking
Boyle Heights.
Middle Boyle Heights, Los Angeles. And so one of the biggest components, which I think it would be kind of fun to mention, is the glass needed to be drilled. So this is kind of what I was speaking to earlier. Is like I had to watch a bunch of YouTube tutorials. I bought this like drill press off Amazon, but you can't just like drill a piece of glass; it'll just crack and splinter. Right. You actually have to have like water constantly hit the glass, so that way when the drill is grinding it, it's like kind of
cooling it.
Yeah, it's just it prevents it from cracking. Right. So I found God, this is so funny. If you have have you ever been in a backyard where that has like a pond? Or something. Yeah. There's a water pump. So I found a water pump that could like spray water. It pumps the water from like a little like fish tank.
And mind you, we had, you know what? Keep telling the story. I'm going to try and pull up the old video.
I basically went home from the holidays with my dad and I was like, Dad, like this is what I'm doing. Like I need your help. And he helped me kind of make the initial prototype for this rig. And essentially it's like a fish tank or like water fountain pump, and it pumps water from a reservoir. I think I just had like a Home Depot bucket filled with water, and it went up a hose and it sprayed water directly at the glass prism. And then I would just drill the glass And like sometimes the hole would be drilled too far, too little. But basically that was kind of the early stages. If you can find that video, I think people would be like, that's what he means. But I mean, I was literally drilling like one by one, and that took so long. Like I remember when we started to launch the pre-orders, they're like, 100 orders came in. Like I'm excited, but I'm like, I have to drill 100 of these things.
We went up north. So we had like made a couple prototypes for the triangle and the orb.
I think for the timeline, let's just so everyone's on track. I think I text you like, this would be really cool. We got the little, what do you call it? The 300 square foot boil height space in like early December. Maybe, yeah. And then we went up to your cabin.
So we went up to my cabin to shoot the Stranger short film.
Yeah,
and
like
then Make Out Massacre. We shot 3 short films in like 2 days. But on one of the days where it was just daytime before we were shooting the nighttime scenes, we busted out the Prisms and did like a little Prism shoot to basically shoot promo material for the new stuff.
I think we were just like, hey, let's test these. Yeah. And it just like, we saw the footage.
But
like,
it looked amazing. We're like, this is incredible. We got so gassed, and probably more me than you. And I was like, bro, we have to go live, pre-order. Like they worked flawlessly. There was nothing wrong with them. And
but behind the scenes, I was still workshopping like the right glue, because I brought 3 prototypes up to the mountains to shoot. Yeah. And I didn't think that this was going to be a big, extensive shoot. I was like, I just want to show these to Jake or whatever. Right. And while we were shooting, 2 of the glues that I had picked like literally failed. Like the screw just came out. I was like, okay, that's not going to work. So behind the scenes of us getting all this amazing footage, I still didn't even like really quite figure out like the right process to make these.
Here we go. Found it.
Okay, yeah. So this is the rig, right? For those who are watching, there's a drill press I got on Amazon. This is a water pump for a fountain. And this is basically a PVC pipe that like holds the glass in place. And I literally like had to drill a 10 millimeter hole. And then we had to put in a metal screw that we had to grind down. We had to grind out.
Dude, my fingers... Dude, those were miserable days, to be honest. Like we were in there.
This is December. This warehouse was freezing
cold. I'm in there hours just grinding down with metal on metal, sparks flying, just a screw after screw after screw to make hundreds of these things.
So the context for that, because I think people...
I think there's a triangle. There's the triangle too.
So the metal that you put inside the glass, basically imagine you're going to stick this to this, right? Basically, those surfaces need to have like a little bit of grit or grooves for the glue to like stick to. So the metal that we were getting from this one vendor, it was like flawless stainless, right? Or not stainless, but it was just like immaculate. So for the glue to like really bite into that metal, we had to like rough it up. So we got an angle grinder, goggles, gloves, and a little handle. And you were just like grinding the metal so that way the glue and the glass like stuck together. Anyways, I don't want to lose a lot of you with the specifics, but I think the biggest takeaway is like the early process of Prism was very much bootstrap. I mean, it's just funny that we can like reminisce on it now, but it was very stressful.
Super stressful, super bootstrap. But going back to like what you're saying about stressful, like we were like went and launched the pre-order like I think that week, because it was right around that December time. There was a lot
of hype, like where can I get this? Where can I get this?
There was a lot of hype from social media. It was right around Christmas. I was like, we have to get this out for like Christmas, drop the pre-orders, people can start ordering. And we dropped the pre-order. And I remember when we checked the numbers, we were at like 300 orders. I was like, Tom, we're at 300 orders, And this is where you come into play.
There's a funny story attached to that. So as I mentioned, I made 3 prototypes just to like show Jake in Arizona, and that shoot of showing Jake these prisms turned into like the promo for this product, and we launched the pre-order. But as I mentioned, like it's a prototype, right? So a prototype means you're like working through the design process to like, okay, it's good to go. And we launched the pre-order, and I had not locked the final design. I haven't quite figured out the right glue. Like I said, the glue I was using took like 72 hours to cure, and it needed to be underneath a heat lamp so the glue dried at a faster pace. So I was like figuring out all these variables as you're like, more sales are coming in. I'm like, no, secretly down in my head. So it wasn't until like actually like a couple weeks before you and Chanel, you were like, we're going to fly into town and we're going to stay there for a week and just ship a bunch of these out. Cause like at a certain point, like customers were like, I ordered in November or December, like, where are they? So all the stuff started coming from our manufacturers. I eventually found the right glue, and I won't get like too into the specifics, but I figured it out. But there was definitely like a 2 or 3 week period where I was down there at midnight. It's fucking 32 degrees. So, I'm like just drilling and like trying to test it all out. And it was, that whole like process was Very, very stressful.
Yeah. I mean, we were in there, me, you, Chanel, from day one, we're in there just working our butts off to like build these things, package them, ship. I mean, here's even a clip right here, I think, where me and you are just at the dock loading their boxes ourselves into the USPS
That's when we were
truck that
using
pulled up.
UPS or USPS.
And so, yeah, we did everything. And this was a long process. And then in that same vicinity right here, probably within under a year, maybe around a year, we moved to a 700 square foot space.
Oh yeah.
It was like, a little 2.5 times the size. And so we grew a little bit, moved in there, and we hired like 3-4 part-time employees.
Yeah.
And from there, we're bringing on our friends. We had Cherie, we had Jamal, we had my now wife's brother-in-law. We had, who else was in there? Dan was in there. So we had
Dan was like our go-to like drill
builder. He would build all the chromatic flares, the kaleidoscopes. He was our main builder because we started relinquishing control a little bit.
Because at a certain point, just for anyone listening and watching, like I talked about earlier in another episode, like bandwidth, right? Like how much time you have in a day.
Right.
And like there just wasn't, there was just not enough of me to complete all these tasks, right? From building, drilling, gluing. Like initially I did that under the first, like probably the first few months, but the order volume just kept coming in to where I was like, if it was just me doing it, I think I would be here more hours than there are per day. Yeah. So that's when we brought in more people. And at the same time, like that's when I was also like starting to explore operating and doing Steadicam. So, we kind of also made this company like as, I wouldn't say a side hustle, that maybe I kind of downplays it, but like we still are filmmakers, right? Like we still want to go work on set and take gigs. And I almost like felt guilty taking gigs in that process because I knew that orders were coming in and people were complaining about not getting their orders. So we had to like strike a balance where like I still was going in. Obviously you still come in here.
We still went in all the time.
And but like we had to like bring in some people essentially,
But now, I mean, we've moved since then. I think it was even 6 months after moving into that bigger one, that 700 square foot one, that we're like, we need to move to Arizona. We need more regular full-time employees. We need to hire, put them on salary. We need more space. We need more room to grow. We need to be more centralized. LA was just tough to like really navigate, grow, ship, get people, reliable people. And
a lot of your family is here.
A lot of my family's here.
Employ them and stuff.
And so now we have, full-time employees here. It's easy to pop in, kind of manage and not take an hour to get to the warehouse, get stuck in traffic. And just a lot of LA's tough, man. And it's just expensive to operate and own a business. So moving it to Arizona was great for the business. But I mean, even going back to, we started with, just the triangle and the orb. We filed like provisional patents on those. That it didn't exist. And we were able to get provisional patents on that and then moved from, okay, cool. We did that. What's the next thing? Then we went to the kaleidoscope filter. And
the 77 filters, which mind you now are like 82 and we have step ups and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's funny. Similar to how we went up to Payson, Arizona to like battle test our first batch of filters. I remember we had a shoot in Kauai where you're like, we're going to go do this coffee commercial or a donut commercial.
In Kauai.
And I remember,
I forgot.
I was like, I remember those I'd gotten raw materials from our manufacturer or vendor and they had just arrived the day before. And like, I have like a really early flight the next morning. And I remember showed you a video like,
3
hey,
prototypes.
These like raw materials came in, like maybe I can make something and we can like use it on this shoot. And I remember like I just made a bunch and I think 3 were the ones that stuck out. And it was the same exact process where, mind you, making those prototypes hadn't really quite dialed in the recipe yet. We go to Kauai, we test them, and then
we love
classic Jake basically, all right, launch the pre-order. And I'm like, oh frick, dude, like I haven't even quite actually optimized like how to make these yet.
2 of which we don't sell anymore, but we're very hot and people still ask us about them. But we just felt like they felt and looked more like art projects than they did like actual filters.
The actual construction of them was, it just looked a little DIY.
Yeah.
And obviously as a company, you like imagine getting your iPhone and it's just got like a little bit of like glue hanging off the side. You're like, oh, this doesn't look quite finished, even though the result was great.
Yeah, the result. I mean, so we had we
called it a
split glass, which was like we would cut and split the glass, glue it all in. It made from really cool flares.
Funny story on
chromatic flare.
How that one came about is I accidentally cracked a UV filter that was on my lens. And I remember actually taking photos with it once. And when the sun or light hits your lens, it would hit the spiderweb crack and create these refractions.
I still wish we could sell that one.
Haunts you, bro.
That one haunts me. I love that one.
It
People
just
love
looked
that
the
one.
most DIY. I legit making those actually was cutting my hands, like cracking the glass and like
no,
it just wasn't
crazy.
Like it just in our resources, it was hard.
So we had the split glass chromatic flare, which we still sell.
The Prism one.
And then the Prism bokeh one, which we called originally, it was just the Prism filter.
Yeah. It was essentially like, I'm trying to think of the best way of explaining it. There's this term called diachroic, which is a piece of glass that's been stained. Imagine going to church, right? And you see this beautiful stained glass. It's been dyed, right? So there's a term called diachroic glass, which kind of similar for those who are watching. It's a piece of glass that has pretty much all different variations of color in it. So we adhered that to a filter. So as light and you spin it and stuff, that those little red pieces of glass or blue pieces of glass would actually create really cool little like fragments and refractions. But that was another one that was like, Dan, who's here right now, actually hated building those. Because you had to like literally almost with like a microscope, like and tweezers, like place the little individual pieces of glass.
I don't think people understand like the stuff we went through to like work on and build this company.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it's never easy to run, start, operate, own your own business. But then especially once you start, I feel like if you're in the public eye a little bit, I feel like people who didn't maybe vibe with me or our brand would like to attack us and be like, oh, this and that, or they're cheap or they're not selling. It's like, it's so hard to own and operate your own business. And we were genuinely filmmakers while still trying to be filmmakers and shoot, direct, and do things like run and operate this company. And it was some stressful times, but it was also very fun and exciting at the same time. Cause like each new level up was just like, oh, cool, let's do this. And to be able to come up with ideas for, you know, your own products, for things you want to see and then see it come to life was like so rewarding. But at the same time, like none of it was easy at all. No. Like
I think people like see kind of the ads on Instagram and Facebook and be like, oh wow, they have it all figured out. Even in this day, as we're kind of gearing up for Black Friday, we're like, as a company, just figuring out a lot of stuff. Like it's a never ending thing. We're definitely not just sitting on a chair collecting a check. Like we are in here. We have, at least if it's not me and Jake, we have people here every single day. Yeah. People come in every day and buy stuff at our point of sale. We have people shipping out. So it is very much an ongoing thing. But I think some people maybe see the ads and be like, oh, well, it's clear. I mean, I don't know. I don't mean to take the conversation that way, but we have, you know, sometimes, you know, you have those internet trolls. And I don't know. Sometimes I think with anything, if you're in the public eye, even as an influencer or YouTuber, you're always going to have someone in the comments who loves to maybe downplay some stuff. But I think what's cool about sharing this story is that like, this wasn't like an easy sort of like, oh yeah, we're, you know, drop shipping. Like we were making this stuff and prototyping it.
At no point in time were we drop shipping this stuff. We were making this stuff with our bare hands, sending it out with our bare hands, like filmmakers, friends, putting this stuff together, shipping it out. Like this was created by filmmakers for filmmakers. And I just want to make that clear. Like it was real. It was crazy. And I wish Chanel was here to like really touch on, we got to bring her onto an episode to just talk about like her trials and tribulations with it.
Because like there was a moment where I was doing kind of all of it, right? Like from manufacturing. I mean, not, I don't mean to say all of it in terms of like you weren't doing a lot, because you were definitely running a lot of the socials and building the brand. But there was a moment in time where I was drilling. I was actually doing a lot of the emails, and I eventually had to pass that baton to her. Yeah. And that's a stressful baton to have because you're dealing with people. I think the thing is they go on our website and they buy a filter with a shoot in mind, right? Like we have a shoot this week, and sometimes people like build these ideas of like, oh, it'd be so cool to have this filter for this shoot, and that shoots in 5 days. So I need that filter in 5 days. And like very clear as best as we can in bold, it says, hey, ships in 2 to 4 weeks or back order. And we got chewed apart. Like I bought this for a certain shoot, and it's like, we're trying to be, you know, the customer's right and be nice. But at the same time, we're like, it literally says in bold, like, this is a pre-order. Like I do not know what to tell you. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you'd get some really angry people.
Kudos to Chanel, because at the time she wasn't even my wife. She was just my girlfriend. She wasn't on payroll. She literally came in and worked on this thing on a daily basis in LA out of like the goodness of her heart and wanting to see it to, succeed and wanting to support me and be a part of it. And like, we didn't pay her or anything. She was just like down for the cause and helped out. And then ultimately took over the emails. And then like that got to be a little too much for her.
It's a lot to deal with, honestly.
Cause she couldn't separate the like personal attacks. Like people would like, she felt like the emails that would come in would be like personally attacking her. And it's like, yo, they're just emailing you frustrated about the brand. It's not, and then ultimately we had to like find someone else to handle the emails. But yeah, Chanel from day one, which is right here, actually. Tom's filming her there. This is on a Prism content shoot day.
That's cool.
So she from day one has been there. Same with Dan. Dan was there pretty much from
Dan, Cherie. It's actually kind of fun recalling all these because as we built all our team, which now our team's like pretty dialed in here in Arizona, but we had a really good little LA unit for a while. Funny enough, like when we expanded the second time, I guess this would be the third time, we got a unit that was like right across from one of our first locations that we started together, which is probably like a different episode, but it was like kind of staring at us every time we'd like be loading, shipping out orders. We're like, what is that giant red building? And we're like, we should ask the owner. And he's like, actually, you guys can rent it. And we're like, let's do it.
And that's what started the barracks.
Yeah.
And because at this time I had Honeymoon and Eclectic. We were starting the Prism thing. That kind of spot opened up and you were like, yo, like I want to do a location too. And we started BN Locations, got the LLC formed, opened up the barracks, started with the barracks.
Yeah.
We always had bigger and grander plans to like build sets and do all these things, but that space was too small. So we moved out of there and got our new spot where we have like the money room, the trap room, the jail, all these sets that we had built and have more space now. And that led into just everything else that we're doing too. So yeah, it's crazy how everything just kind of naturally like
moves
feeds and it flows and ebbs and flows.
That's why I think like you can never
next.
just be, I don't know if the right word is like complacent, but like I hate sitting idle. I mean, maybe that's a downfall to some degree, but I wouldn't say I get bored easily. I just don't like sitting stagnant. Like I've kind of self-diagnosed myself with like ADD. I just like doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I think naturally, as the story began, Tropic was doing good. And we're like, well, what's the next thing? And then that thing kind of turned into this, which kind of, and it just always is leading to something else, which I think is cool because I never want to be sitting at the end of my life, just having been on autopilot for so long. I always want to constantly be making stuff.
No, 100%. I think even looking now, like we're in Prism's warehouse, but because we kind of have this extra space and we wanted to do a podcast now, boom, we built a podcast set and studio inside of the Prism spot we have. And that's there. And it just has led into that thing. And who knows now where this leads to. And so, you never know. Just starting something will lead to something else, which leads to that thing. But if you never take that step to start something, you can never progress and move forward past that where you're at. So you always have to, be constantly like work on that thing, build that thing will lead to the next thing. It's just constant progression with everything.
Let me ask a question and you can ask me the same one or a different one in regards to...
Are we looking on time first? Are we good? We good on time? What are we at?
Yeah, we're about 30 minutes into it.
Yeah,
so we can go a little bit more. Out of all the different facets of Prism, from the different products, the different things we've done with the company, what would be the thing you're like most proud of? That can be a singular product, that could be the brand identity, that could be any aspect of the company. But like, what thing do you like stand back right now and look at and be like, wow, like that's awesome. Like we did that. You know what I mean?
I think the fact initially that we created something that didn't exist in terms of the mountable Prism and we were able to get a provisional patent because it was like, yo, this wasn't out there. So we technically like invented something, right? In terms of that. But then furthermore, that's what led to the ultimate like bigger picture, like holy shit, is just people around the world buy and use our products. From the
seeing the stories,
the DMs that I get every single day of filmmakers and photographers tagging us, opening their boxes, Paraguay, Iran, friggin' Italy, obviously then Canada, US, just all around the world. And just, or we'll be, dude, when we went to get the paint yesterday to paint this wall, and the guy in Lowe's just goes, yo, are you Jakob Owens? And I was just like, yeah. And he's like, dude, my friend just put me onto your work. I love Prism lens effects. Like, I love the filters you guys are making. That's so dope. And like, it's just like, bro, like, that's cool. Like, just seeing people that do what we do, create films, music videos, commercials, photography, whatever, that like literally pull out our product and use it on their shoot. That's cool. Wild. Like, that's just wild to me. I don't know. That's pretty crazy. So, and it's not just like a local, like, little thing. Like, it's around the world, and that's pretty mind-blowing. Like, you would have, when we started this with just that Prism, and we were just talking about the idea and initially initiating that, if you would have told me that, like, in a year or two, that, yo, this is going to be global and you're going to have people all over the world using your stuff, tagging you, whatever, I would have thought you were crazy. I was in Greece when we went on that cruise. Was that 2 years ago now, or year and a half, whatever that was? And actually, it wasn't that cruise. It was a different cruise that I was on when I went with Chanel, and we were going through Greece, and this guy stopped me. Same thing. He brought up Prism lens effects, and Jakob Owens and Buff Nerds.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, I don't know. It's pretty crazy.
It was a cool feeling. I think for me, my favorite aspect of it is kind of what actually probably led me and you to initially launch this company. Is I love like making new things. Yeah. Like, I think my favorite instance was probably when we made the Dream Effects. It was like an initial like prototype. We were sort of dialing in like the chemicals and the coating. Yeah. And when we finally got one that I got shipped to me, and I unboxed it, like held it up, I was like, oh, this is it. I remember, I think I FaceTimed you, even just like held it over my phone. And this is a singular instance, but I think just the idea of making something, and sure, soft filters do exist, but like being able to make anything, right? The linear, the kaleidoscope, things that I've never seen out there. Right. Like, being able to make new things is like, and like, honestly, Prism was a new thing. That's always been the thing I've been chasing, is like, what's that next new thing? And we've got some stuff that we're working on now that I think we're excited to share eventually, but it's just always been fun. Cause like we kind of go into like, I remember I every time we launch a new product, we put on blinders, and it's like, okay, you're going to take the photos. I'm going to work on this. And like, we like go into like launch mode, and it's like kind of like, I find it so exhilarating, you know?
I love the fact that we still do everything so bootstraps too. I don't know. Me personally, I like to have my hands on everything and so many things and be a part of the creative process. It's not like, I don't like to like just sit back and like, okay, yeah, you guys go do that. Like, and I feel like you're the same way, and we just like, we get so excited, and it's like, boom, let's go test this. Yeah, I'll take the photos. We do the video. Let's do a shoot. You upload to the website. Like, we still do, like, yes, we have a team in place to handle so many facets of the business, but we're also still so hands-on. Yeah. But I think that's also what makes it like relatable and still fun and exciting. And but yeah, I think just seeing this brand going from, from absolutely nothing, just a little idea in our heads, us just talking about it, to like people around the world using it, and people now wholesaling orders, massive boxes to sell in their own, crazy to me. To sell in their own store across the ocean is pretty freaking wild. But I think, it's just a testament to hard work, putting your head down, taking a risk. For us, this was a huge risk to put on pause a lot of the stuff we were doing, to go in and grind on this. We didn't know if it was going to work or not. We were spending our own money and to, dive into it. And I don't know. It's
doing the own R&D, like teaching ourselves how to do ShipStation, like open up an LLC, learn how to do. Like, there is so much, even to this day, there's stuff I'm figuring out from like tax annexes. And maybe that'll be a cool episode. Like, maybe let us know in the comments below if you're on YouTube, like if some more sort of business related podcast stuff would be cool. Cause I don't know, we want to go where this serves everybody listening. Right. And I think if
this isn't to serve us, this is to serve people that want to learn, know, grow, get information.
Dude, learning how to file a patent, learning how to get a tax ID, like those, like there's so much that I actually had to like learn via YouTube, like that maybe is cool to share one day. So, but yeah, I mean, there's kind of, as you've seen, Prism's been on a kind of a crazy journey, and it's still very much a journey that's in progress, but it's been kind of cool at this moment in time to look back on it. Cause I mean, it's end of October. So yeah, it's been about 3 years. Cause I remember in November around the holidays, cause I was in Florida with Jordan's family, I was ordering like a lot of that glass. So yeah, like mid-November is 3 years.
3 years. That's crazy.
And 3 years sounds like a long time, but dude, it went by like that.
Oh, I know. I mean? That's true, man. That's crazy to think about.
We've actually only been in this building for a year. You know what I mean? Like it's
crazy that we're even coming up on a year on this place.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. Time flies.
Yeah.
It's freaking wild.
No, but it's been cool, man. So I I feel like that's kind of at least the funny, not funny, but just like the stories and the journey that I at least thought we were going to talk about, unless there's anything that you kind of want to mention about Prism otherwise, you know?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, that's a pretty good summation of like how the business started, some of the behind the scenes of like some anecdotal funny stuff of.
I'm trying to think if there's like a product that we prototyped. They're like, yo, this ain't it, you know?
Well, I guess the color cube.
Oh,
maybe.
yeah.
But no. I mean, it was cool. It's just too expensive to make.
I will say that was definitely a dark time for this company. Like the color cube, for those who are listening and watching, it was it was a very hard thing to make because you're essentially like morphing different pieces of glass. And it was the case in point. We got one of them working and we're like, told the world, order them now. And we quite hadn't figured out the process. And that one ended up taking a couple months to assemble.
The first one.
The day we got it.
The day we got it made, we were testing it, doing a shot inside of our 300 square foot thing.
Yeah.
And I like spun it to make it turn and it fell off the screw and just shattered.
But all said and done, that was rough because a lot of people kind of had just got people are just getting their orb and trying to like, yo, I support this company and they're seeing this new thing we're launching. So everyone jumped onto that one. And it just, I think on our part, like I said, we've been bootstrapping everything. We just didn't quite have the production process in place where it took a couple of months longer than normal to make these things. And we just, had to deal with like refund me and that kind of, we learn as we go. I'm not going to stand here and act like we had it all figured out. I mean, like I just thought it'd be kind of fun. We talked about the success, but that was definitely a moment where I was like, okay, this one's not going to work. So we actually unfortunately had to stop producing that one just because it just was not feasible for us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think the last thing I want to say is just to anyone that's ever, supported Prism Lens Effects, like you're supporting filmmakers, photographers, family, friends, people who genuinely care about this and have put blood, sweat, and tears into building and making this company. And we're going to continue to build and try and grow and make things that you guys want to see and do it at an affordable price point. Because that was kind of the thing that started. It was like, yo, as filmmakers, we're spending $500 on a 4x5 piece of glass to put in front of our lens. It's got to be more affordable than that for people. Mm-hmm. And that was like a big reason that we got into the cinema filters and other filters too. Like even the smaller 77, 82 millimeter filters. It's like, yo, a lot of people can't afford hundreds, of dollars for a piece of glass to put in front of the lens. So we do this. It's a passion and we want to create stuff that you guys want to use and create. And yeah, it's like you're supporting real life creatives and friends and family members that are passionate about this. So yeah, I just want to say thank y'all for anyone who's ever supported us.
I think maybe people who've purchased maybe not can associate like us behind it.
Yeah.
For a different note, like Tropicolor, like I sometimes get like messages like, hey, just like, are you guys real people? Or are you guys like bots? And it's like, like it's really us. Like we're really, my phone number's attached to one of the customer things and people are like, oh, I didn't know what you were going to pick up. I thought this was like a fake company. I'm like, no, this is like very much.
It's so weird.
So just, hopefully people can see it really is just us, and our team,
Yeah.
So,
I don't got much else to say about that. Maybe we'll dive into, some funny stuff in the future about like funny customer emails or stories on things or whatnot.
I mean, there's just in that journey, there's so much stuff. Thing that we've laid out, there's so many little deeper things that we can dive into.
Yeah.
So maybe save that for another episode, But
yeah, if you enjoy the podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, please drop a like. It helps us tremendously. Leave a comment if you enjoyed the episode. If there's anything you else want to see us talk about in the future, make sure to subscribe, put on that bell notification in terms of the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening on like Apple Podcast, Overcast, Spotify, I'm sure there's a way when you scroll down to leave a star rating and leave a comment. And as corny as it sounds, it really does help. It pushes us up in the algorithm and thus allowing us to get more guests and more people on. So if you could take the time and you are enjoying this, thank you so much. But for now, I'm Tom.
And I'm Jake.
And that was today's.
You already know. Oh, shoot.